You're listening to Keeping Up with the Knights, a podcast for the faculty and staff at Steele High School, allowing them to connect outside of the classroom. Teacher, coach, mentor, and speaker Michael Herrera, a past District Teacher of the Year, will sit down with fellow teachers and bring their stories to life. Sit back, relax, and enjoy these stories as they unfold on this episode of Keeping Up with the Knights.
Today I had the pleasure of sitting down with Cassandra Keaney, a math teacher of the last 5 years at Steele High School, as well as a Steele Knight graduate in 2010. It was a great time, and I hope you enjoy it too. Please help me welcome Cassandra Keaney to episode 5 of Keeping Up with the Knights. All right, so I am here with Cassandra Keaney, teacher at Steele High School. I appreciate you joining me for this episode of Keeping Up with the Knights, so thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right, so what I like to do at the very beginning of the podcast is always start off with what I call bell ringers, right? A lot of teachers always do like a warm-up in their class or journal or some kind of activity to get the kids loosened up a little bit for that day. So we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and then it'll be your turn, and you'll ask me 5 back, all right?
All right, not a problem.
All right, let's go. All right, so COVID, crazy time, right? Like everyone's having to deal with this craziness. And ever since spring break, like we haven't been at school, right? And we had all this time in the world where we were working but not working. We were working from home and whatnot. So some people kind of took it upon themselves to either take on a new hobby or maybe revisit something that they used to do. So what did you do new, or what did you get back to during COVID break?
I actually am a huge art fan. So I used to be really into drawing comics and stuff growing up. So I actually got back into drawing, and all I did was I drew different Disney characters based on what my friends liked, drew them, colored them, and gave it to them. So I got back into drawing.
That's awesome. So are any of the pictures behind you ones that you did?
No, they're actually some that my students have done. Again, I'm a huge Disney fan, so one of my students from last year painted me a Disney picture right here. It's
That's awesome.
And then one of the students who I've had several years ago, it's Spirited Away. So she went ahead and did Spirited Away, and there's some that are off on this wall that you can't really see.
That's awesome. So you and I have something in common, because I was and am, I guess I consider myself kind of an artist, and I love to draw and I love to color and I love to paint and do different things. So that's why I do this podcast, right? So you learn something about people that you share in common. So we definitely share that in common. All right, number 2, if you were to star in any movie, I don't care, it can be a cartoon movie, it can be any kind of drama, it could be an action, like what movie would you star in?
If I were to star in any movie, not actually really live the experience, it honestly would be Hunger Games.
All right.
Super fascinated.
Which character?
Oh, Katniss. Right. I love Katniss. I love who she is. I love what she stands for. And I'm a huge fan of the series. I'm a huge fan of the books. I'm actually re-listening to the audiobook right now.
On your way home or to work and stuff?
Yep. As I get ready in the morning, sometimes while I'm grading.
There you go. All right. Well, good deal. Question number 3. All right. So with education, we all get super stressed, like probably now, right?
Oh,
so like, what is your go-to, like, I'm stressed out, I don't want to cook dinner. Like, what's your go-to food or snack when you get stressed?
Okay. Go-to food or snack. Wow. I am super obsessed with popcorn. So I love all kinds of popcorn. I tell people it's like my favorite food. So probably popcorn.
All right. So now you have something in common with me, and you have something in common with my wife.
All right.
So out in New Braunfels, I don't know where you live. Do you live here in Schertz, Cibolo? Where do you live?
I live in Cibolo.
Okay.
But I go to New Braunfels quite a bit.
So have you been to a place called Popcorn Friday?
Yes.
All right. So that's good. That place is awesome. They know my wife, and it's like all she has to say is that this is Courtney. Oh, you're the teacher. Okay, we got your order ready. So
I love that.
She is a regular there. No lie. She goes there every Friday, which I know you don't have to go there on Friday.
Yeah.
But that's because that's her weekend snack.
That
So
is awesome.
she went from like one bag to now like 3 bags, and I'm like, goodness gracious. So y'all have that in common for sure. All right. Question number 4. If you could go back in time and give yourself a high five, what would you give yourself a high five for?
That's a good question.
It's actually, as you're thinking right there, it's not a question that I came up with on my own, but I do, now that I'm doing podcasts, I listen to a lot of podcasts. And that was a question that I was asking. I was like, you know what? I really like that idea, because oftentimes we don't think to reward ourselves for things that we do, right?
Yeah, I think honestly, and my biggest thing is I went through a huge weight loss recently. So I think going back on that first day that I realized that I needed to make a change in my life. I was very unhealthy. I was going through some health problems. So I would go back to that day and high five myself for making that life choice.
You know what's so awesome about that is like it's not so much the recognition that you needed to do something different, it's that you actually did something different. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of times, whether it's in teaching or your personal life, we always tend to like think of all these wonderful things that we can do to self-improve, but we miss the action step, right? So the action
Yep.
step is what will give you a high five for that. So I don't know if you know this, but I used to be a personal trainer. And by trade, I'm an exercise physiologist. So
Yeah.
personal training for me is right up my alley. And so that's what I always used to stress to my clients is the action steps, right? I'm a big proponent and believer that you have to put things on paper.
Yeah.
So when
Oh,
you
yeah.
put your goals or your actions on paper, that's step 1. But step 2 is to actually take the action and do it. And then after you do it, you have to repeat. And so
Yep.
I would
And
always tell my clients, if you repeat with me for 14 days or 14 sessions, we're going to break that habit, and you're going to get into that new cycle of habit where it's just a part of your routine in your life. So
yeah, and I think that also like that just goes with anything too. Like it's baby steps that are going to get there to where you want to be, that end goal. But you have to like, no matter how hard or how difficult something is, it's the consistency and the push and it's very much an internal drive.
absolutely. 100% agree. All right. So my last question here is, Cassandra, if you were not a teacher, what other profession would you be doing?
That's actually a great question because I tell people this all the time. I honestly wanted to be a veterinarian, but I wanted to be a veterinarian specifically for large cats. I have a fascination for animals. I love animals. And I really, really like cats. I know that sounds like I'm a crazy cat lady. I'm not. But I wanted to work with large animals, like and large cats specifically.
Is
I
there a such thing?
I didn't know at the time. I mean, I could have been like a veterinarian for like a zoo. So that kind of ideally where I would want to have gone, but I would really want to work with the cats.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for
Yeah.
sharing. So
Yeah.
there's my 5. It's your turn.
All right. If you could relive a high school year, what year would it be?
Man, I had a toss up between my junior year and senior year, but um, you know, I was academically sound. I was always a good student council. I was in HOSA when I was in high school, soccer, basketball, track, cross country, you name it. I was always involved all 4 years. And it's not that I would go back and necessarily, well, no, I would change something. I just don't know if it would be my junior year or senior year, but it'd be purely because of basketball. I thought that I was doing something right, like the way I used to train and play basketball and try to achieve that, you know, college scholarship, if you will. But apparently what I was doing was not enough. But I did a lot. I mean, I woke up in the morning and I would go run 2 or 3 miles. I'd probably dribble my basketball and do all these drills and shoot and whatnot. But I could have been better focused on what I was doing even more. So, you know, it's a toss up. I don't know if it'd be my junior year or senior year. So sorry.
It's okay. Mine would probably be my senior year.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of the same idea. I kind of set back a little bit. Didn't have that drive that I originally had to begin with. Who is your favorite cartoon character?
Roger Rabbit. Growing up as a kid, like Roger Rabbit was like, I think it came out when I was in first grade, which I don't remember when that was, first or second grade, somewhere around there in the middle 80s when I was growing up as a kid. And I still have my Roger Rabbit doll to this day. Like a lot of kids always have like their teddy bear when they were a kid. Like mine's Roger Rabbit. So
I love that. Like I said, I'm a huge Disney fan, so I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
What was your high school car or your first car?
First car was a Smurf mobile. It was a blue 4-door Geo Metro. This thing is probably the size of my like hood of my car now. Like it was this tiny little thing that I don't even know how we had 4 doors on that vehicle, but I called it the Smurf mobile because it was awful. But every kid should have an awful car for their first car. Like I go out into our parking lot and I see like these like Mercedes or these like brand new like lifted trucks, and I'm like, you're gonna wreck the thing. Like you got to go through your beater car first and then get your next car. You know,
we got mine at a dealer, like it was used car. It was really beat down, but I loved my first car, and it was a Volkswagen Bug. But it had a turbo engine, and it had a little like spoiler that popped up when I hit 50. And I thought it was the coolest thing, but that thing
absolutely.
That thing broke down so many times. What about your celeb crush when you were younger?
Pamela Anderson. Like what guy growing up in the early 90s did not crush on Pamela Anderson? But maybe late 90s, it would have been Jennifer Aniston on Friends. But, you know, that's who it was.
All right. And then are you an AM or a PM workout person?
That's okay. Well, that's hard because in the work week, I'm not waking up early if I don't have to.
Yeah.
But like on Saturday mornings, you might know this, like I run marathons and stuff. And so Saturday mornings, waking up at 5 or 5:30 and going out for a 12, 15 mile run, I love that. But if I'm just going to like answer your question in terms of working out, it's definitely a PM. I love the heat of the day, going outside and sweating, but then coming inside and taking a shower. So I love my sleep too much. And I have 2 little kids, Jackson and Cora. And so typically on a normal work day, like this morning, my daughter's in bed with me at like 5:30, something like that. But then she falls back to sleep, but she snuggles right up to me. So it's like, I'm not getting out of bed. Nope.
Yeah.
I enjoy that too much.
I'm very much the same way. I like my sleep. I prefer working out in the PM, but same thing, weekends, I'm up early going and working out and running and doing that.
And having the rest of the day.
Yep. I think that's my 5.
That's your 5. All right. That was quick. All right. So I feel nice and warmed now. So let's go ahead and dive into this interview. And I always like to start off the interview by kind of just talking about your childhood, like where you grew up, right? What was your family environment like? Brothers, sisters, mom, dad? So just kind of, I'll let you go there for a second.
Well, I was born in San Antonio, but my dad is Air Force. So I grew up a military child. I have lived in Texas 3 times. I've lived in Rhode Island. I've lived in Las Vegas, and I lived in Hawaii. I have a younger sister who we're 7 years apart. So when we moved to San Antonio for the last time, it was my sophomore year, and I actually moved here and I went to Steele High School. I'm a Steele High School graduate. My sister at the time was going into her 2nd grade, so she kind of didn't really experience that military life. That's something I tell her all the time, like that to me is such an important part of my background and how I became who I am. And yeah, I believe that that's kind of made me who I am, and in the sense that I've been exposed to so many different cultures and so many different backgrounds, and wherever I moved, I had to learn to accept whatever background and whatever culture I was being presented, because if I didn't, that, you know, I wouldn't enjoy my experiences there. And the other thing going into that with being military, my dad wasn't always around. I love him to pieces. I look up to that guy, but for a good chunk of my life, it was during 9/11, and he did serve in Afghanistan. I remember through middle school, it was very, very challenging, very tough. on the family, on my mom, on my sister. And that is always something that also has made me kind of very strong and independent, because mom was always working. I had to look after sister. I kind of had to step in and be an adult figure in that sense. Does that make sense? Kind of.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
yes. I mean, it almost forces you to grow up and be the mature young adult, even though you're a child, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, just being military, I have gone to 7 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 2 high schools.
And
So
then you
I have
graduated
been
from
around a
Steele
lot.
High School when?
And I
What year?
graduated from Steele High School in 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. And what's crazy to say is that I've been here since then too. So this is year 15, year 15 for me at Steele High School, which is crazy. So, I like doing these podcasts because you learn. For me, selfishly, I learn about other teachers, right? And the point of the podcast is really to bring teachers together, even though we wouldn't normally be brought together, right? And so just knowing that you have that military background, that selfishly helps me, because if I do have students, I know that I can send that student to you or see if we have that commonality, if that kid's in your class. And I can also reach out to Langford too. So like I've got people that are in my corner, because we can't do this job alone. Like education is not meant for me to solve the world's problems for the kids in my classroom.
Yeah.
And even though I have relationships with students and I've got good rapport with kids, sometimes students just gravitate to other teachers. So it's always nice to know the backgrounds of student, or I should a teacher like you.
I think that's another thing too. You make a good point, is when you build those relationships with the kids, a lot of times it is like, I've been through it too, and I'm here for you if you need me. And I think you make a great point. We need to be aware of like which teachers that maybe like, I'm like, oh, I understand where you're coming from, but I didn't have that experience, but so-and-so did.
Right. Yeah, no,
So
you
I
definitely
like
hit the nail on the head there, because that's precisely why I put together this podcast, is to connect teachers outside the classroom.
Yeah.
All right. So question number 2. So you talked about you graduated from Steele High School. You made the decision to go off to college. Talk a little bit about where you went to college, what you majored in, and maybe some kind of like pivotal moment in college. It doesn't have to be academics, but it can be academics. It could be socially. It could be anything that was a pivotal moment for you during your college years.
Well, you can see it right behind me. I went to Texas State in San Marcos. I went there for all 4 years. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, and then I minored in secondary education. During my time there, I was in a sorority. I was in Delta Gamma.
You're a DG.
I was a DG. Yep. I loved everything about my sorority. I was very much involved in leadership roles throughout my sorority, and the biggest thing that I contributed to was a lot of the community service. I got to work with the blind and visually impaired school in Austin quite a bit, because that was our philanthropy, which was really cool. I got to experience working in that math environment and using those different technologies. And along with that, during the time I was at Texas State, I worked in the library. And so because I had that background already, I was specialized in all of those technologies for blind and visually impaired audio, all of the SPED kids that would come and use those programs. That's what I did in the library, and I would help them when they came in. So I thought that was kind of neat. As for a pivotal moment in college, it was learning to accept failure. I really, really hold myself to a high standard. I battle anxiety, depression. I have OCD. So I have it all, the whole package. So
hey, we've got that in common too, because I'm right up that alley. Type A OCD. There you go. Yep. More power to you.
And so when I do fail, it really, really affects me. My parents were very much like on me when it came to grades, on me when it came to getting things done. So I had a class in college, and I think everybody has this at some point, where it's just one class. It's frustrating, it's hard, it's challenging. And I had this professor who, he just did not make me feel like I could do it. I would answer things a different way. I would still get the right answer, but I would do it a different way. And he basically would tell me, no, you're wrong. I'm the professor. I have the PhD. So I ended up dropping out of the class, and that was really hard for me because I'm like, I can't fail, So I go in, this is next semester, I take it again, and I purposely take it with a different professor. I show up on day one, and it's that same professor. And at the time, again, my parents are very like, you got to get it done. Are you doing everything you can? So they made me stick with the class. They didn't let me drop it again. I ended up failing it with an F. So this is second time around. And in my head and in my gut, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just failed a class. Like I'm the type of person that's always gotten A's and B's. Like I do not get a C. I do not get a D. I don't even get an F,
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn that it's okay to fail. You got to keep moving on. So third time's the charm. I went in there, I took it with another professor who I really, really worked hard. I told myself I'm not letting myself fail this again. And I ended up passing it with a B. But just internally, that was a pivotal moment for me to say that it's okay. Like life still went on. I still graduated college. I still had a high GPA, and I'm still successful where I'm at today. So that was kind of one of those like eye-opening moments that it's okay. Just breathe and move on,
Absolutely. And that's that growth-minded piece, right? Where, and this, only through our failures do we truly learn, right? We have to fail first and fail and fail and fail in order to become successful.
Exactly.
And then even in athletics, in every loss, you can't lose the lesson, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And even in anything like math especially, I have so many kids that tell me like, I'm really bad at math. Like, I'm just not going to get it. And for me as a teacher, like I tell them, it's okay. It's my job to help you. It's my job to get you through it. There's going to be moments like where you're not going to get it. And there's going to be moments where you might make a mistake, and that's okay. And so we talk about, just really in my class, it's every accomplishment starts with a decision to try. And so all you got to do is try. And my goal is to help get you the rest of the way.
Well said. I really like that. Now I get to get my pencil out and write that down. That was awesome. I like that.
Yeah. Thank
All right.
you.
So let's talk about then. So you graduated college, right? And then, here you are, you're a teacher here. So did student teaching, your first teaching job, talk a little bit about that.
Well, I am a Knight true and true. I student taught here with Miss Langford. So I look up to her quite a bit. So student taught here with her, and then I got the job right away my first year, and I've been teaching here 5 years, going into my 6th year, and like I said, I'm a Knight true and true. I don't really want to leave.
Very good. You know what? So I think that's 3 things now that we have in common, because this is the only place I've ever taught.
Yeah.
Prior to here, I was working in the cardiovascular world, at hospitals and whatnot. But I always knew I wanted to teach and coach, but I had to have 2 years of clinical medical experience in order to become a health science teacher. So I worked in the medical field for 2 years, and then I've been here for 15. So again, this is why we do it. We have things in common and they're worth sharing. So, all right. So let me kind of change gears from just like the typical like life story kind of questions and get more into like who you are and the way you think about teaching. So the question is why do you teach?
Why do I teach? Oh, I love that question, but it's so hard sometimes. I teach because I generally love my kids. I enjoy making them get that aha moment. I enjoy the frustrating days. I enjoy the easy days. I'm a very, very much an empathetic person. I'm very much a compassionate person. I generally care about those that are around me. And, going into all of this, like teaching was never something that I thought of until I went to my orientation for college. And I said, no, like that's what I want to do. That's what I need to do. I enjoy helping others. I enjoy being there for others. And like I said, past 5 years, I've been doing it for 5 years, and I've had so many memories. I've had so many students that I've feel like I've connected with and that I've been able to help, not just in math, but through life. And that's why I do what I do, because I love to be there for others and I love to help others.
It's interesting because, so far I think I've done maybe 8 or 9 episodes of this already. And, kids are always like the center focus.
Yeah.
I haven't yet heard a teacher say that I teach because I love math. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, you can still love math, but it's not first. The kids come first. And I almost feel like when you said that, it made me think of, if you were to declare education as a major and you walk into your first class, your freshman year, and they ask you that question and they say, hey, so why do you want to get into teaching? If they don't answer the question because I love kids, okay, you got to choose a different major. You know what I mean? Because that's exactly where it has to start. You have to truly care about those little babies that you're teaching in kindergarten, or those older babies that you get in high school before they go off to college, right? So you have to love kids. So yes, thank you for sharing that. All right. So you're teaching. You've been teaching for 5 years now. You're up at the board. You're teaching math. Kids are having aha moments or whatever. You're having the stresses and the woes of not knowing how to get the problem. What is your definition of success in your classroom?
Ooh, definition of success. I think probably by now you've realized I'm very much of having those challenges and overcoming them. And so it's right on my board over here. That statement I said earlier, every accomplishment starts with a decision to try. So success in my classroom would be consistent trying, realizing your mistakes, asking for help, fixing those mistakes, and trying again until you succeed and get that end result.
And so each one of those that you just listed off there, because that was really well said, those could be used across the board in any class.
Yeah.
Because what you just talked about there, those are life lessons. Those aren't math lessons, right? That's not math teacher talk. That's just all of those are real world life skills that these kids have.
That's kind of my kids ask me that question all the time. I'm sure you get it everywhere, but math especially. We get that question, when am I going to use this? And most of the time I joke and I say, haha, next week on your test, And then I'm like, no, I tell them a lot that I'm teaching you math, but I'm also teaching you problem solving skills. I'm teaching you to think logically. I'm teaching you to figure out what you're given and how to overcome things to get to the end result. Pretty much kind of what I said. To me, that's success in the classroom too.
Yeah, it's like it's not so much our content in our class. It's the processes that we try to instill in you that will matter in our classroom with whatever content that we're going to teach, right? It's the process behind the journey that we're after, not so much solving the Pythagorean theorem or whatever else, right? It's just, I'm trying to teach you the practice skills that you're going to need in whatever profession you choose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know how to solve this math problem? I'm going to teach you the steps to solve that math problem, much like you're going to need to be able to write down those steps to learning how to build a building or manage your relationship with your spouse in 10 years or whatever, right? Like you have to problem solve, right? So, so in your academic career, there's got to be a teacher that you will always remember. So who is that teacher that you will always remember and why?
I love her to pieces. And she actually, she worked at Steele. She retired a few years ago, and it's Miss Plowman. So Annette Plowman, she, just something about her. I enjoyed walking into her class. She always made every kid just feel like they belonged and feel like they were a part of something. Even when I student taught here, she made an effort to make me this like little end of student teaching gift bag. She always makes an effort to check in and just say, hey, hang in there, And even now, I don't really see her as often, but I do have her on social media, and she still reaches out with her little comments, enjoy the little moments, And I really, really inspire to be her.
It's awesome that it's so difficult sometimes, and we do it with our parents too, that there's just this point in our life where, whether teachers are not for us or our parents just hate us or whatever because we're teenagers and we don't have life figured out or whatever, but there's a moment in our life where like maybe we have that aha moment, not with what we're learning in the class, but life. And we stop to realize and thank what we have right in front of us, like teachers or like parents, right? Like we go through this like cycle pattern of, we love our parents when we're like 7 or 8 years old. And then we get into this like teenage phase where like, just get away from me, mom, to, okay, mom, I miss you because I want to come home from college. And then it's like, mom, I can't believe you did all this for me. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel like educators, when we get this nickname of that's my teacher mom, or that's my teacher dad, and I've got students that call me dad. Like they'll text me and they'll say, hey dad, how are you? And it's like, I don't know if everybody gets that. I know you do. I know I do. But again, that goes back to your why. Why do I teach? Because I love it, right?
No, and like you said, it is like I have quite a few that call me mom, and I'm like, I'm not old enough to be your mom, but thanks, I'll take it, and I'll be your mom in this moment, but you still have your mom, but I will be your mom in this moment. I'm here for you, and it really is such a awesome thing and such a rewarding thing for kids to think of you like that, though.
Absolutely. It's edifying to us when we have maybe our why. Our why is because we love kids. Our why is because I want to teach you life lessons. And then it comes back full circle when they appreciate what you're doing and like, okay, well, now you get me. Now you understand why I'm teaching, right? I've shared this on an earlier podcast episode. I can't remember who it was with, and I'm looking at her desk because she sat right here last year. But like the first 2 weeks of school, I typically do a lot of SEL type stuff, just getting to know you, getting to know me. And this girl looked at me with a straight face in front of the whole class. And she's like, excuse me, Coach Herrera, when are we going to start learning in your class? So I addressed the whole class. I'm like, yes, thank you for asking me. Like now I get to go off on a tangent and not teach anything for the rest of the day because I get to answer your question.
Yeah.
So I love those opportunities. But on my whiteboard, I have my why statement, and it goes something to the extent of that, because I want to know that I've created a relationship with you that will go beyond the classroom doors after you walk the classroom hallways or the hallways of the school. And it's so important for me that when I get a student that edifies my why, it keeps me going, right? It makes, I love my job and I love coming to work every day. But when a student can notice that and appreciate it, I just think it's harder. Like, when did you realize like Miss Plowman was like that? Was it during high school? Or maybe was it after high school, after you left?
I think it probably would have been after I left, and I look back and I'm like, you know what? Like that's like, she was the teacher. Like she was she was a very good teacher. She taught. Yeah, she taught the lesson very, very well. But again, she also built those relationships. She made us feel wanted, she made us feel like every single one of us in that room belonged there. And that's something that I strive for too. I try to make every little connection I can with all my kiddos. Like you can probably see on my board back there, I have all this artwork from them. I've also had some football players who have left me like medals and stuff that they've signed them and gave them to me. And so it's really cool because I do try to reach out and connect with all types of kiddos. I love my students, and just making sure that I can relate to every little element of them or find one little connection. That's something I really do strive for.
Very good. Well, so now, you've been teaching for 5 years. So now I want you to kind of maybe share, without maybe mentioning a student's name, because we want to obviously not do that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a student, but just share a pivotal moment in your educational career so far that you will never forget.
Okay. I have one, but it might make me tear up. Okay. I had a student. See, I'm already going.
You got this. This is like the third time I've said this today. You got this.
No, I had a student who was really battling internally.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know who to talk to. Parents were not very supportive. And I remember the moment she came through my door, and it was kind of one of those, like, I need you moments. And I dropped what I was doing. Miss Hernandez came into my room at the time. I went down, we took her to the counselor. I sat with her during that whole time. We called mom. We did what we needed to do. And a few weeks later, she came back and she wrote me this long note. And it was a very deep note, thanking me for saving her life.
You know, it's moments like that are just, that's why we teach, right? You have to put math on hold to save a kid's life, right?
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, it was very detailed. I'm not really going to go into anything, but again, it's just one of those things to know that I made a connection that she felt like she could come talk to me about, you know?
Yep. You know, I have a similar, you know, this podcast is not about me, it's about you, but I will share, just because we have that commonality, which, you know, in some way that brings us a little bit closer together as teachers, is I had a student, a male student, several years ago. Out of nowhere, I get an email from the parent, and she states that she has tried to send her son to all these different types of places and therapists and all this, but he continues to say the only person that he will talk to is Coach Herrera.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the pressure that I felt in that moment, where this kid was contemplating suicide, to have a parent reach out to me and say, I've tried doctors, I've tried this, I've tried that, but my son only wants to talk to you. After you get over the pressure and the weight on your shoulders, thinking that you have to solve this kid's problem. You don't have to solve the kid's problem. You just have to listen to the kid. You just have to be there for the kid. You have to lend 2 ears and close your mouth and just let them talk. And so I ended up mentoring him with the approval of the mom and whatnot. I would meet him outside of school, and we would have discussions, and I'll never forget it. The first place we ever met, other than my classroom, but the first place we met outside of school, he took me to his father's grave. And it sounds really weird that he did that, but that's where he felt safe. He told me that that's where he would always go when he was dealing with problems. Yeah. So he wanted to introduce me to his dad.
And the fact that he felt comfortable bringing you to his safe zone too, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. So you know what? It's one of those things that there is so much more to education than teaching our content. And it's teachers like you that make a difference.
And that's the other thing too. I mean, in going into one that's not as drastic, I had another one who we pulled some teeth. I had to pull some teeth, some arms, some legs, just to get this kid to finally work in my class throughout the year. We finally got him through, and he ended up going to Allison the next year. But he came up to the school several times. He told me about his progress with Allison. He asked me to go to graduation at Allison, which I did go to because I had a few kids that were graduating that year. And he still comes up to the school and checks in with me, and he lets me know his progress. And he was never one for college bound, but I told him he could do it. I mean, he could do it if he put his mind to it. But he said he was never one for college bound, and I told him that's okay. You know, you do something that you're passionate about. And he still comes and checks in with me. He is working in a car maintenance shop right now, which is awesome. But he's came to me, he says, I'm going to school. And I said, oh, cool, what for? And he said he was going through a 2-year program for mechanics, which I thought that was kind of cool. And just having kids that generally like come back. And he's not the only one. I have several kids that stop by all the time just to fill me in. You know, once they graduate, they start adding you on everything too. And they want to share everything, and they want to ask for advice on everything. And it's just kind of cool just to have those kids check back in with you and know that you made that impact for them to want to keep you in your life.
Absolutely. So you kind of already addressed this in a roundabout way, but I'll just ask it here. In your opinion, what makes a teacher amazing?
Oh.
Right. So like, I'll kind of elaborate on that. You mentioned Miss Plowman, right? So like,
Yeah.
Other than yourself and Miss Plowman, like what is it about teachers that make them so amazing to the point where kids come back and visit you, right? So what are those qualities that you think a teacher needs to have to be considered amazing?
I think we have to be patient. You have to be patient with these kids. You have to be understanding. Um, you still have to have your foot down. Like, you still have to be a guiding factor for them, an adult figure for them. But I do think that we have to have empathy, and really just relating. Like, these kids just want you to relate to them. They want you to listen. They want you to understand the things, share interests with them. It doesn't always have to be about your lessons and your topics, which yes, you have to do that, but it doesn't always have to be about that. Just really making and easing the tension in the classroom, I think, is my biggest thing. Making it enjoyable.
I think it's so important. I don't know when this podcast is going to air, this episode, but for those of you listening, like, we have kids coming back on campus on Tuesday, and I'm so excited. Like, I'm one of those teachers when Miss Cervantes said, "Hey, who's looking forward to the kids coming back on Tuesday?" And I'm like, I am.
Yeah.
I heard some no's, and I don't know who those no's were, but I don't know if I don't know. I don't want to go there, but the point is that we have kids coming back on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And I know we're friends on social media, but I posted something about how important it is to remember that this is like our first day of school on Tuesday.
Yeah. Yep.
These kids have dealt with so much emotional stress, anxieties of the unknown. Yes. We have racial tension in the air. Yep. There's all sorts of stuff going on in this world, in this state, in this city, in this school district, in our high school. It's a first day of school on Tuesday. And I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of content-driven teachers out there that are going to, hopefully not, but potentially just try to resume where they left off on remote learning.
Yeah.
No, like, and this is my opinion, and I'll welcome the conversation, but it's a first impression.
Yeah.
You don't get this.
I agree with
you.
Have
this opportunity to, like, make that connection and build those relationships on a good foundation. I'm still going to teach stuff, but it's going to come second to everything else, right? So I think it's critical that we take a step back from the norm of last year. Well, I can't even say last year, the norm of 2018, 2019, because that's not what this is going to be. And I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know if it's going to be a semester thing or if it's going to be an all year thing, but teaching is teaching, and we're going to teach. We may not teach everything that we're used to. We may not teach in the same style that we're going to, but your why can still be the same. Yes. And kids are still going to walk out your doors learning math. They're still going to walk out my door and they're going to learn health science, right?
Yep.
But that relationship piece and that building relationships with kids has got to be at the forefront.
Yeah. And like you said, it is a first day. I mean, what really saddens me throughout all this is that I don't know what half my kids look like.
Yep.
Like, I don't know what they look like. I'm not going to know their names. And that's really, like, already, like, that, like, sickens me because, like, I don't like that. Like, I like to be the teacher that learns their name on, like, the first week. I like to be the teacher that learns something about them the first day. And, I did a little questionnaire on the very first day through all of this and, about me. And I read through them, but it's still, I'm not going to be able to make those connections that I did the very first week of school, like you said, in a normal school year, like 2018, 2019, where I'm going to probably want to spend this new first day really getting to know them and letting them know me and know my personality, because they don't even know my personality yet.
Yep. So I challenge you and everybody listening to this too, because we're still going to have kids at home. Something that I've been trying to do in my class for the last 4 weeks is I always send them one weekly video. It's not a Monday thing or a Friday thing. It's just kind of whenever it feels or I feel compelled to give a message. Yeah. And I found through doing that with my kids, but I also, their assignment for the day is they have to respond to my video with a video.
I like that.
And so what I've learned, man, and I was at home and it's late at night and I'm watching these videos, but I really want to watch my TV show on the TV. I have just found myself putting everything on hold and pausing all that and watching these videos and these kids just reveal and talk. And it was very welcoming. Like it's hard to get kids to do that kind of stuff, but the more they did it, it was a part of their routine. So they got more comfortable talking on their cell phones and submitting videos to me. But man, our kids are going through a lot. And I think it's so important that teachers take a step back, not only for the kids that are showing up on Tuesday, but for the kids that are going to be doing remote. They need to see your face. They need to hear you speak. We can't hide behind a computer because they're going to mimic what we model. And so for me, it's a little bit out of my comfort zone to send kids a video message, because I typically, even on my own personal social media, I never do the whole selfie talk and to give some kind of message. I'll type my message. Yeah. But how are we going to expect kids to get out of their comfort zone if we're not going to get out of our own? So
I like that. I like what you said about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like that, but that's also, again, selfishly why I'm doing this podcast. I'm trying to do some personal growth and get out of my comfort zone and talk to people and build relationships with people. I'm a very sociable person, but I'm sociable in my circle.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same way.
And so the purpose of this is just, and I heard this on a podcast, you have to move your circle, right? You can still keep your circle, but you have to move it and you've got to grow it. And so that's kind of why I'm doing this. But all right, so my last question for you, a lot of times we talk, and we've done that today. We've talked about how important relationships are with our students. You have to have that foundation first before you start spewing your content to them. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate it when students let us know and they thank us and they come back and they tell us stories and, thank you, teacher mom, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But we often don't do the same thing with each other as a faculty. We've done the thing where you pass the rose around at a faculty meeting, early in the morning, once a month or something like that. So I'm kind of like spinning that off and doing something here. Who is a teacher here currently on campus that you would like to thank, and why?
I don't want to go with the obvious choice. So I would normally say Schuster, just because she's my best friend and she's always there. But I'm not going to go. I love her to pieces and she knows that. I tell her all the time. But I think I'm going to go with Miss de Guzman. And it's just because she's kind of one of those that has, even throughout all of this, she's stepped in my room and she had to remind me, it's okay to breathe. It's okay not to get everything done right now. It's okay to not be way up here with everything, and she's very much that I want to say my mom figure, but I call her like my big sister. And she's very much that older sister. She's always giving me really good advice. Every time I'm around her, she kind of just eases my anxiety. And I don't think she hears it enough that she is an amazing teacher. Starting this, when I student taught here, she was the team lead for algebra. And I was like, wow, who is this woman? I want to figure her out, I really, really looked up to her, and I don't think she realized that. So I want to thank her for being such a positive person in my life.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Mr. Guzman for being a superhero on campus. That's the point of doing this is to make those connections outside of the classroom. So, again, thank you so much for being on this episode of Keeping Up with the Knights. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, since we have 3 days to hopefully get some inner peace before the kids come on Tuesday. But I hope your school year starting Tuesday is wonderful. So be blessed, and thank you very much.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Keeping Up with the Knights. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure you subscribe and click the notification button so you know when the next episode is released, and then share it with your friends and colleagues. If you're so inclined to do so, would you please rate and review this podcast to help me grow our community of listeners? I hope there was something that you heard today that allowed you to connect outside the classroom. Now, more than ever, we need each other as a support system, and we need to continue to make this the best high school in the state of Texas. Thank you, Knight Nation. Now, go be someone's champion today.